Hello, fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today we're going to be looking at a novel that I feel is one of the closest examples to what I feel like this channel kind of embodies, and that is looking at literature, and this is of course just the literature aspect of this channel, not the movie aspect, but looking at literature that fumbles with or considers or plays with the idea of liminality. And this book, more than any we've read so far, really plays with the concept of liminality, and that is Haruki Murakami's Kafka on the Shore. And this is a first American edition that I'm holding here. You can see that it has a cover that may be different than the covers that you are familiar with. Of course, I did not read this version. I read this version, but I always like to show a first edition when we talk about these books. So Kafka on the Shore was published in 2002 in Japan, was translated into English and released in 2005. This is the first Murakami book that I remember waiting for. I had read all the Murakami that he had written before this, heard that it was published in Japan, had friends in Japan that read it before I was able to, and I even considered reading this one in Japanese myself, but I never felt confident enough in my Japanese reading to be able to do that. So I had to wait, and it was crazy waiting for this book to come out. And right when it came out, I read it, and I remember loving it. And then I never read it again. So this was a reread for me, and as a reread, it was interesting because there's so much of this plot that I either didn't understand the first time I read it, or I had completely forgotten about it. I did not remember much of this novel at all. So a lot of this was a surprise to me. Okay, let me give you a quick synopsis of what you can expect if you read this novel. First off, the novel, like many of Murakami's, follows two narratives, and these narratives slowly braid together until they meet. The first narrative is about a young boy named Kafka. He's just turned 15 years old, and he is running away from his house because he is afraid of an Oedipal, or Oedipal. I don't know how you say that word. I've heard it both different ways, so let me know in the comments which way you would say it. I'm going to say Oedipal from here on out. Curse that his father has placed on him. His father, since he was a young age, has told him that he was destined to kill him and then sleep with his mother. Of course, this is completely abnormal. Kafka can't handle it. The young protagonist, whose name is not Kafka. We never learn his actual name. He takes the name Kafka when he runs away. So he's trying to outrun this curse while simultaneously looking for his mother and sister. He has a picture of his sister, but he has no recollection of what his mother looks like. He eventually ends up immersed in a tragedy that happened many years before he was born, and the implications of that tragedy have spread so far that they need to be recontained, and the world needs to be set back to right. I know that's very vague, but that's the kind of stuff you can expect from this book. The other narrative follows a man named Nakata, who experienced a group trauma with his classmates when they were all on a field trip out picking mushrooms. Now, this happened as a school trip for Nakata in 1945, near the end of World War II in Japan. And the children and teacher all see basically an unidentified flying object in the air. They think it might be an American bomber, but they don't exactly know what it is. And after they see this object in the air, they all the children pass out. The teacher doesn't, but all the children do. And about an hour later, all the children wake up, except for one, a child named Nakata, who doesn't wake up for like 3 weeks. And when he finally does wake up, he has the strongest case of amnesia I've ever seen in a book at all, in the sense that he has forgotten everything. All education he ever had, the ability to read, write, talk, everything is gone. He is truly a blank slate. And the story, we come into the story when Nakata is an older man and he's unable to read and is considered mentally handicapped. But coming out of this 3-week coma, not only erased all of his memories, but it changed the way that he looked at and understood the world. And the best example of this that I can give is that he talks to cats. Nakata can talk to cats, which is ultra cool to begin with, but this book takes it a step farther. And when we meet him, he is a pet detective, right? I'm sorry to make you all think of Ace Ventura, but that's what I thought of when I was reading this. He's a badass pet detective because he goes around and asks other cats to help him find cats that are missing. Eventually, Nakata has to square off against a cat torturer and cat killer, the bad guy of this novel, and he is a bad guy. If you're going to read this, know that there is a chapter that really has some animal cruelty in it, which of course pushes Nakata to the point of extreme reaction, and eventually gets him messed up in the same tragedy from the past that Kafka's dealing with, the kid that ran away from home. That's enough of that. That's the basic plot of this novel, the beginning point. Everything goes to weird areas that you would not even be able to guess. It is a very, very strange novel. A couple other things that you can expect is the use of literature and metaphor as a way of communication between characters, which I find very awesome. This idea of mutually understood concepts that the characters had read about are brought in as metaphors to understand the things that are happening to them in this novel. Really, really brilliant. It also includes a lot about the Shinto religion, which I found very interesting because when Murakami first started, he did have this play between Japanese and Western concepts. But as his career has continued, we've started to see his novels deal with more Japanese themes as time passes. Killing Kamadatori, the most recent one that I half read, I DNF'd it. That's a whole nother story. Deals a lot with Shinto. But this one was the first one that when I read it back in 2005, I went, wow, this is uniquely very Japanese amongst his bibliography, because it deals with Shinto and the history of Shinto so much. The strange thing about this book is it doesn't explain that. It just puts all these situations that I feel like a Japanese reader would instantly understand as Shinto. And the Wikipedia article in the analysis section does say there's a lot of Shinto themes and everything, but he doesn't give Western readers a roadmap to understand. It's written for an audience that already would understand this. What I thought about the book, usually this is where I do themes, and I am going to do themes, but I feel like I wanted to talk about again how perfect this book is for this particular channel, and that is because the theme, one of the themes that plays really strongly in this book, I feel, is the concept of liminality. And we see it across every aspect of the writing of this book, right? So if we look at the three major aspects of a novel, we can start with the setting. The setting of this novel, number one, is about travel, which is a liminal process in and of itself. But this book takes it even farther in the sense that it takes place on the conjunction between two different worlds. the entire back half of this plot is all about the liminality of traveling between two worlds. And I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to give too much away. So the setting is definitely a look at liminality. Even all the characters, each one of them showcase liminality in some way, shape, or form. And I'm going to go through them really quick. Kafka is a youth on the verge of adulthood. And this running away becomes a liminal ritual that will allow him to become what he feels is an adult at the end of everything that occurs. Oshima, kind of the mentor and good friend of Kafka throughout this entire novel. And this is a little bit of a plot spoiler, so if you'd like to skip the next 30 seconds of this video, please do. Oshima is liminal in the sense that he is between genders and between sexuality. He is not easily definable on either side, so becomes kind of this liminal character in that aspect. Saeki, who is maybe Kafka's mom, is living in the past while trying to survive in the present and unable to think about any future. She is on the space between the past and the present. Nakata, the man that can talk to cats, has a liminal social sphere. His position in society is liminal in the sense that he is neurodivergent. He doesn't look at the world the same way that everybody else does. He's able to see and read things that other people cannot. And finally, Hoshino, who becomes a good friend and almost an acolyte of Nakata, is a character that is liminal in the sense that he straddles the world between responsibility and irresponsibility. He's trying to decide what kind of human he wants to be. So the book has all of these different concepts of liminality presented throughout it, which that alone is worth the price of admission and makes this a really, really interesting read. What I thought of the book, I loved it. I really did. It does not replace Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World as my favorite Murakami. And I think that there's even a couple more that I like a little better. However, I did love it. I spent a long time looking at reviews of this book before I made this video, which I do for all the books that I read, just because I want to get an idea of what generally people are having trouble with this novel, with each novel that I read. This one I noticed a very specific trend in that people really were divisive with this novel. They either loved it or hated it. I didn't see a lot of people that went, oh, it was a novel. It was okay, right? Not a lot of 3-star reviews. A lot of 5-star, a lot of 1-stars. And so I really focused on the 1-stars because I wanted to see what people's problem was with this novel. And there was a couple of things that I noticed, trends that I noticed when people talked about what they disliked about this novel. One of them that was that it had a great beginning but doesn't really go anywhere. And this connected to a couple of ideas. The sense that it lags in the middle, which I can agree with. However, I don't agree with the concept that it doesn't go anywhere. I feel like Murakami wraps up most of the mysteries in this, and that was another thing that a lot of people said, is that it's just mystery on top of mystery on top of mystery, and then they're never answered. And I disagree with that. I found almost every mystery answered in this book. And if you're interested in seeing me put my money where my mouth is, I will be putting up a deep reading of this book tomorrow. So if you are watching this and are like, no way can he explain all those mysteries, I've explained them. Of course, this is my interpretation, but I feel like the book wrapped up really beautifully. So if you'd like to see how I feel that's true, watch my deep read. And the number one problem most people had with this book are the sex scenes, which is understandable. Murakami in my opinion, always writes kind of weird sex scenes. And this book has a lot more of them than I remembered. Some of them get downright assaulty. Not even downright. There is assault in this book. It is in a person's dream, and doesn't happen in reality. But that doesn't change the fact that you as a reader will be reading this. So if that's something that you don't want to read about, you should absolutely skip this book. Some people have said that all the sex scenes are there without any explanation or reason. That I disagree with. Again, I will be going over that in my deep reading of the book. I think all of them were there for a reason. They are clumsily handled and downright gross in places, but I do think that they're there for a reason. That's not a defense of what occurs. It's a defense of the fact that he felt that they were important to the book, and I do as well, that they weren't just put in there for fun. Which I have seen a lot of reviewers say is that they just think Murakami's gross and that he's just putting them in there because he's a pervert. I think that they have meaning in this text, and I will go over that as well. So overall, I would rate this book an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I do recommend it unless you have a strong aversion to animal cruelty, which there's a chapter on animal cruelty in here, and sexual assault, which there is 2 chapters, I believe, that involve some form of sexual assault. And what I most love about it is I feel like it is one of the most thorough looks at the concept of liminality I've ever come across in book form. And that was really enjoyable. Thank you so much for watching this to the end. If you liked it, please click like. If you like this kind of content, please click subscribe. We'll be making a lot of it in the future. And look forward to my deep reading of this tomorrow. A lot of you will probably be watching this later. I'll put a link up at the end of this video to the deep read so you can watch that next. Thank you so much.